So, hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. And as I have mentioned earlier, the best thing about doing this podcast is I get to speak to so many different people with such profound wisdom. And apart from the fact that researching about these podcasts, it's pure bliss. Like while researching for this podcast, I got to know that the gold medal at the National Defense Academy, Khadagwasla, Pune, which is offered to the best cadet over there, goes by the name of Lachit Borphukan medal. But who exactly is this great Lachit Borphukan? What is his history? Where does he comes from? Unfortunately, we don't have many conversations regarding him in our mainstream, and that's why for discussing the history of Lachit Borphukan, the history of the great Ahom Kingdom, today we have with us Mr. Nilutpal Gohain. He has written a fabulous book regarding the legend of Lachit Borphukan. He's currently employed with the government of Assam. He has also written many books and he's a passionate cook as well, I guess, by his bio. So thanks a lot for coming to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks a lot.
So, sir, as I was mentioning that, not much has been said about the great Ahom kingdom. You don't find their references much in our, in our textbooks. And it's a sad fact that not many people know about them, especially if we talk about you know, the middle part towards the northern part of India. So, if you could please let us know that how great this Ahom kingdom was, both in terms of the geographical span that they ruled, the period for which they ruled. It will be great.
Uh, well, during those days, the geographical area of the Ahoms of Assam was up to Bangladesh in the south, Myanmar in the east, Bhutan in the north, and Manas River, that is in Barpeta district right now, in the west. So, but that kingdom slowly declined. The Kamrupa kingdom slowly declined because the kings were weak, and as a result of which, many petty chieftains came up who started ruling small pockets of that whole kingdom, and the whole of Assam went into anarchy. And during those days, there was uh, another dynasty somewhere in the South China, in the border of South China and Myanmar, where two princes fought among themselves for, you know, for the throne. So one prince defeated the other, and he was exiled from the kingdom. He, along with some of his very dedicated followers, marched towards the west of Myanmar. Uh, they were about 100 to 200 people when they started marching. And for 17 years, they roamed. They roamed the whole of the Myanmar and the upper part of Arunachal Pradesh. And in 1228 BC, they arrived in Assam. And he was the first Ahom king, Sukafa. Sukafa had two of his very dedicated ministers with him, the Bor Gohain and the Bura Gohain. So they slowly started subjugating the small chiefs and the other chieftains that were ruling that area during those days. Now, while he entered Assam, he did two things. One, he the places which could be subjugated or which were vehementing very strongly, fiercely, he subjugated them with might. But the kingdoms who welcomed him, he subjugated them with his benevolency. So the people started liking that king, and he assimilated with the culture of that area. So that's why the first king Sukafa, uh, I can say, laid the foundation stone for the Ahom kingdom that ruled Assam for about 600 long years. and there were various kings, there were various stages where the kingdom reached. There was a zenith during the reign of Suhumung, where when the kingdom of Ahoms, where the uh, area wise it was the largest, and Suhumung introduced Brahmanism in Ahom kingdom. Before that, it was an Ahom tradition which migrated from the Myanmar region, but slowly they started adopting the Brahmin religion and Brahmanism. And during the later part of, uh, I'd say, the kingdom, it was in 1800s when the kingdom declined. It was almost the whole kingdom turned into Brahmanism. There were other kings as well. Rudra Singha finds a mention in the history for being one of the greatest rulers of the Ahom kingdom. And obviously, during the reign of Chakradwaj Singha and Jayadwaj Singha, um, our hero of today, Lachit Borphukan, was the um, commander general of the Ahom army. So with this, I would like to move into Lachit if we go forward.
Yeah.
So the other kings, as I said, the Rudra Kingho was a very famous king of the Ahoms. The kingdom reached its zenith in terms of excavations and constructions, and I'd say um, Chakradhar Singh and Jayadhar Singh, they were the two kings under whom Lachit Borphukan was the commander. So those two kings also find a great mention in the Ahom history.
Yeah, and I mean, this was a very good and very succinct history of the whole Ahoms, captured in like 5 minutes, and it's a good sort of a brief on how long that this kingdom really ruled that part of our country. Now,
Yeah.
when I was reading about these Ahoms, they were a martial clan in themselves. It was like they didn't have a standing army. It,
Hmm.
I, I don't know whether it's right to say or not, but they had sort of a militia where
Hmm.
every citizen was trained to fight with every weapon that was available.
Hmm.
So when we talk about the home military, which is quite prominent, to defeat Aurangzeb at his peak,
Hmm.
it's one of the feats that many couldn't achieve. So when we
Yeah.
talk about the home society as a as a martial society, how correct is it?
Was actually there was a system called the pike system of the Ahoms. The pike system was like uh, f- four people of a kingdom, four male of a kingdom form a pike. So these pikes uh, form a goat. So one person is called a pike, four pikes form a goat. So during peacetime, one of the pike will work for the kingdom and the three pikes will take care of his family. Okay. And during war or if there is any emergency, three of the pikes will come and work for the kingdom, and the one who is remaining will serve all the three families, the remaining three families. That was the whole idea, the pike system. So these four people have to be trained in everything, from building bridges, dams, from fighting the enemy, weapons, everything. He has to be trained. Similarly, he has to be trained in agriculture as well because he has to feed the family, right? So that was the system that Ahom's kingdom followed, and that's why it was said that it's a standing militia. Everyone knew how to fight, how to build, how to construct, and everything that was required for an army to do. And these pikes were uh, classified into various categories, and um, some of the commanders who commanded them, they were similar to the Mughal kingdom, where it was said Mansabdari, Hazari, like that. We had similar systems called Hajorika, who controlled 1,000 pikes, Bora, who controlled 20 pikes, uh, Rajkhwa, who controlled 1,000 pikes, and a Borfukan or a Fukan controlled 6,000 pikes. So that's how the whole system was. So it's very correct to say that it's a standing militia.
And the great thing about this is even these posts, if I could say, that you right now mentioned, the military hierarchy of that time, you
Hmm.
find these names somewhere in the surnames of people who belong to modern day Assam. And when I was just
Yes.
reading about this, it just struck me. I was like, wow, what continuity do we have as, as a civilization, that those posts which were at that time responsible for, numerous individuals of the military, you still find those names, in and around you. So that
Hmm.
was really wonderful for me as a person to know. Now, one
Exactly.
thing that you rightly mentioned is the society during the homes. It was a multicultural society. Even the kind of a religion that they practice, or the religious practices, they were maybe a bit different than what we practice right now. So
Hmm.
even the royals, were they buried? They were buried in some sort of a pyramidal structure called Maidan, if I'm not wrong. I was trying to read about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Hmm.
it was an Ahom culture to bury the kings. Every Ahom was buried during those days, but the kings or the royal family were buried in moidams. They believed that uh, for the post death, um, I'd say, journey towards heaven, because the Ahoms believed that all their kings came from heaven. They climbed down through a golden, ladder, and they arrived at the land. They ruled, and they went back. That's how they believed. So they built those moidams, and they would provide every necessary thing that is required for that person to make the journey towards heaven. At times they would even put servants with them, live servants, so that during the journey they would be able to help those kings, the royal family. So during the I'd say attack of Mir Jumla, when Mir Jumla desecrated these moidams, he received, or he excavated huge amounts of wealth from those moidams, gold, jewelries, everything. And that was the most formidable, I'd say, loot that Mir Jumla had from Assam during his attack.
Yeah, even I was watching a few videos here and there, and I got to know that on those majestical circles of the Madam, if I'm
Hmm.
pronouncing it correctly, you have holes there now, which
Hmm.
was categorically designed for looting the whole structure and the
Yeah.
precious treasure that was buried for the king in the afterlife. Although I
Hmm.
didn't know about the life servants part, that is something very new. But I really feel bad for them. But
Yeah.
do you think that do you think that these practices were brought in from the tribal society of maybe the Myanmar region?
Yeah, it was brought from that region only. In fact, there were various other practices. There is one practice we still do. I am from the Ahom Kingdom. We still do. It's called the choklong. Choklong is a different way of getting married than the usual, havan kind of a thing. So in choklong, we burn 101 earthen lamps, and we take vows in front of those earthen lamps. Similarly, on 31st of January every year, we celebrate Moida Mefi. Moida Mefi is like, we recall, or we remember our ancestors, and we give them puja. The puja is also again a different kind of a puja. So the culture is still there in bits and pieces, and that culture has been brought from the Myanmar region. Now, so when the Ahoms started taking the Brahminic religion, so the Brahmin influence also came in. So as an Ahom today, I also follow the Brahmin religion also, and the Ahom religion also, and that same goes for my ancestors as well. That is
I
how.
think this is very beautiful in a sense, and I'll tell you why. Because if you remember in the pre-podcast, I was talking about Mr. Ranjit Radhakrishnan, an author who has written a
Hmm.
book about Parshuram. So
Hmm.
in that podcast, we have discussed about the various religious practices that we can ascribe to the natives. of
Hmm.
that particular region. Say he's from Karnataka,
Hmm.
so there were certain practices that were still inherited from that region. And like I am from Uttarakhand, so we still have our own native practices of how we practice. We perform maybe puja a bit differently. And now
Hmm.
when you say that, even that those rituals in that part of Assam are still being practiced,
Hmm.
it's wonderful. Even in that podcast, we were discussing that even to worship the divine, we have many different forms, many different ways. Like you
Hmm.
said, the puja. I'm
Yeah.
guessing maybe in that part, is there a different way to invoke the divine in yourself? Is that still practiced there?
Yeah, that is there, but it's in the Brahmanic religion only. You might be knowing that Kamakya temple is a seat of tantrikism, right? So this
Yeah,
tantric
yeah.
practices, during these tantric practices, the way of invoking the god in itself is practiced. There's a temple called Silghat Kamakya. It's in the Nagaon district of Assam. There we have a similar kind of ritual like we saw in that movie, that Kannar movie, right? I forgot the name of the movie.
Kantara.
Ah,
You're talking.
Kantara. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Kantara. You're talking about
yeah,
Kantara.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we also have, even I've witnessed one of those, performances, and I had
Yeah.
my father had the privilege to ask a question to that deity, and the deity answered.
Oh.
So the same thing is practiced here, a bit different, but yes, we practice these things too.
This is very beautiful at a very personal level to me, because whenever I speak to different people from different parts of the country, somehow we maybe the practices are a bit different in the way that they are done there, but
Mhm.
the core essence of the things is it just remains the same. And
Yeah, yeah,
across the geography and time span, it's fabulous to know. I mean,
exactly.
it's really fabulous. So, getting back to the home kingdoms, because this topic is so broad that if we get lost, it can go anywhere.
Yeah,
So, if we talk about the home kingdoms, I read about that they had one amphitheater called Rang Mahal, which is probably the largest amphitheater of Asia at that time, Rang Mahal.
yeah.
So,
It's called Ranghar.
Rang Mahal, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, there is one. Still, the amphitheater is still there. It was first built with cane and bamboo, but at a later stage, it was built with mortar and bricks and all those things. It's still there. People, it's a tourist spot for people today. People visit it. It's a huge area. Basically, it was built for the royal family to watch buffalo fights and wrestling matches and those kind of a things during Bihu. Bihu is our festival. During Magh Bihu, we generally have buffalo fights and cockfights and all those things. So those were practiced. In fact, that thing was also migrated from Myanmar, but the Assamese people have now accepted that as their culture.
No, never knew that. It's so great. I mean, now when we talk about Ahom, we get to learn that they were a society, they were a martial clan, and everybody knew how to do everything. Particularly, they were very much self-reliant,
Mhm.
and were ruling over this part of Assam for nearly 400-500 years. So, how did the turn of events lead to that eventful battle of Saraighat? What are, according to you, maybe that what are the causes that leads us to that historical battle at Saraighat?
Uh, Throughout history, we have seen that you know the main enemy is always within, right?
Yeah.
So it was basically treachery among the kingdom that led to this. However, the attack of Mir Zumla, the main, I'd say, commander of Aurangzeb, who uh, who spearheaded the whole thing, was an icing on the cake. But basic treachery was among the kings and the royal families only. So the first when Mir Jumla attacked, it was before Mir Jumla, when there was anarchy in the Mughal kingdom, and Aurangzeb wanted to ascend the throne, and his brothers were fighting among themselves. That was a time when the Mughal rule slightly weakened down. So, taking advantage of that situation, there were two kingdoms during those days in Assam. Uh, Beyond Manas River, there was a kingdom called Koch Kingdom, and from the Manas River to the eastern part, it was the Ahom Kingdom. So the Koch kingdom was then ruled, or was the vassalage of the Mughals. The Ahom took advantage of that, and they attacked the Koch kingdom, and they defeated the Koches, and they subjugated that area. There's another part in the Ahom kingdom that was under the vassalage of the Mughals, uh, that was acceded during a past treaty somewhere around 15 20 years back. So that area was also subjugated by the Ahoms. And when Aurangzeb ascended the throne, he came to know about this. He thought that he wanted to teach the Ahoms a lesson, and then he sent Mir Jumla towards Assam to attack. However, in Assam, there was anarchy because of the aspirations of the princes to become kings. The same situation. So the Borphukan and the Fukan of Jayadhwaj Singha, when Mir Jumla came, they sided with Mir Jumla and they helped him in attacking the Ahom kingdom. As a result of
Oh,
which, yeah, as a result of which,
oh my.
the Ahoms couldn't give fierce battle, and they lost the
If
whole.
I could just, if I could just interrupt you, I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
If you, for the listeners, if you could describe that how important these posts of Borfukan and Fukan were in the administrative setup of the homes, so that they understand
Okay,
the gravity of the whole thing. Yeah.
okay. So the king is the ruler, but the king has to take every decision by discussing it with his three ministers: the Borfukan, the Bor Gohai, the Bura Gohai, and the Bor Patra Gohai. Later, there were two more posts created: the Bor Borwa and the Borfukan. So Borfukan was basically the administrator of the western part of the kingdom, because the seat of the Ahoms was in Sivsagar. Sivsagar is in the east of Assam, and the kingdom was till the Manas River. That means the west, almost Barpeta, beyond Guwahati. So someone has to administer this area also. The Borfukan post was created, and Borfukan was the overall commander of the militia, the standing army. Now, if the commander sides with the enemy, then how the army will fight, right? So they had a free run towards the
Yeah.
capital, and the king has to king had to run and take shelter in Arunachal Pradesh, and that was a very humiliating defeat for the king. So he, due to that humiliation, he couldn't survive long, and he died. Then there was another anarchy to ascend the throne, and during that course of anarchy, one Chakradhat Singha, he ascended the throne with the help of then Bura Gohai and the Bor Gohai. Then Bura Gohai, as we spoke before, was Aton
Oh,
Bura Gohai, one of the best ministers the Ahom kingdom have ever seen. He was a young minister, but he was very insightful, and he had very quick decision making power. So he made Chakradhar Singha to ascend the kingdom, and then Chakradhar Singha decided that to give a fierce battle and to drive away the Mughals again from the Ahom kingdom. He had to have commander who could, subjugate and direct the enemy, and also then subjugate and drive away the enemy. And secondly, the army should also listen to him. The militia should also listen to him. So that's why he took a few tests of Lachit Borphukan. He was known as Lachit before, and when
okay.
he was chosen, he was given the title of Borphukan. So that's how he came to be known as Lachit Borphukan.
Okay.
He passed three tests to prove his mettle. It's all in the book. I'd just like to show the book to everyone.
Yes,
This
yes,
is the
please.
book which I have written, The Legend of Lachit Borphukan, a very detailed one where you'll find all these incidents which I'm speaking about, and in a very detailed way. And secondly, it's written in a story manner so that people find it interesting. And I've done a lot of research to write the book, so everything mentioned here are facts. I've not skewed anything while writing this book.
Yeah, that's actually the beauty of that book. That, as you have mentioned, the history is very profound. It has a lot of dimensions, but the way you have written it, it's quite interesting. The way the story carries on. The best part I liked is the book didn't have any fluffy details, so it was like a constant narrative that was flowing. So I think for me,
Uh-huh.
the personal takeaway was the constant narrative that was coming in the book. So I would
Thank
really,
you.
ask our listeners to definitely read the book, because whatever we will discuss here, as I always say, is something that will be at the superficial level, to say the
Mhm.
least.
Yeah.
We cannot touch the depths and the gravity and everything that is written over in the book. So please
Mhm.
do read the book for your own good. So as you're saying, yeah,
Yeah. Then once Lachit took over the reign, he
yeah,
himself trained the militia. You know, the militia was trained, no doubt, but to fight an enemy like Aurangzeb and his commanders, his army, you have to have some extra sort of a training. The king also monitored the training. The king himself was on the field while the army was training, and they took around 2 years to prepare themselves for the battle. And after they prepared themselves for the battle, they uh, marched towards Guwahati. So the king was in Sibsagar, and he trained the whole army in Sibsagar. Sibsagar is about 300, 350 kilometers from Guwahati. So after the training, they marched, actually not marched, I'd say they sailed towards Guwahati
say
on boats. Yeah,
yeah,
on the Brahmaputra River. Now, Guwahati has a very significant geography. Guwahati, the Brahmaputra River flows from the middle of Guwahati, and on the both banks of the river there are hills. So, if someone approaches Guwahati through the river, then the army that is sitting in the top of the hill will have a clear view of the enemy that is coming, and they can have clear shots of the enemy. So it's very difficult to attack Guwahati through the river. And if there is no way to enter Guwahati through the land route, then the enemy had to enter through the river only. So what Lachit did, once they arrived at Guwahati, they attacked all the forts that the Mughals had in Guwahati, and they captured Guwahati very easily. But after capturing, he didn't sit down. He directed his army to build impregnable walls. There are no doubt there are hills, but there are places, valleys, where there were no hills. So they built walls of mud and mortar and everything, and they made Guwahati impregnable from the land. No one could enter Guwahati through land. So the only way was through water, and if they entered through water, it was difficult for the enemy to, subjugate the army that is sitting at the top and looking at them. So that's how uh, Lachit thwarted every attempt by the Mughals to attack Guwahati.
uh, the efforts that were put in defending the erstwhile kingdom and Guwahati and other parts of Assam, they were very formidable. And two things I would really like to mention here is, uh, Lachit Borphukan was, I think, one of the greatest military minds that I've ever read about, because
Hmm.
the way he maneuvers across his battles, the way he turns, he knows that the Mughals have a strong artillery, they are good with their horses, they have
Hmm.
good cannons. Mughals indeed had a formidable navy as well, as I was reading about
Yeah.
this stuff. So they had a navy which I was not aware about. As someone who has a very limited view like me, I always thought that why would Mughals need a navy?
Mm.
Because whatever conquers, as I had known, that was through the lands,
Yeah.
the hinterland of
Mm.
now the hinterland that time, and coming from the northwestern part of India.
Mm.
So, but I was totally wrong about that part. They indeed had a navy, and that's
Mhm.
where I think the greatness of Lachit Borphukan comes. Is he purposefully drives the battle from land to water,
Water.
and the river Brahmaputra there also plays a very great role. I mean,
Yes.
even when I see the videos where, at very unfortunate times, Assam is flooded by
Mm.
Brahmaputra. For someone from coming from outside to come and
Mm.
navigate those waters, it
Yeah.
would have been a very hard task. It wouldn't have
Exactly.
been easy. I mean,
Mhm.
when I got to know that, right, I was like, this is very beautiful in terms of military strategy.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
whatever we speak about him, it will be very shallow to say, but one very popular incident, and I would like you to say those words in Assamese itself. The
Mhm.
incident surrounding his mama, his maternal uncle, where
Yeah. Ha, ha,
the
ha.
building of those walls is there. If you could just
Mhm.
describe it, that would be really great.
Yeah. As I said, he ordered his army to build walls across Guwahati.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, um, he got information from his kotokis. We used to say, the Ahoms used to say kotokis. Kotokis were the informers of the Ahoms. So he got an information from the Kotoki that the Mughal army has arrived at the border of the Ahom Kingdom. So he wanted to, build the walls as fast as possible. So he took his horse and went around the whole area, supervising how much work has been finished. So one part was assigned to his maternal uncle, and he advised his uncle that, see, uncle, the enemy is right around the corner. You have to complete this wall by tomorrow morning. So his uncle said, okay, I'll try my best. So next morning, when he goes and supervises that area, he finds that nobody is there, everybody is sleeping, and the wall has not been finished. So he got so enraged, he called his uncle, and he had a small argument with him. And without even thinking once, he sliced his uncle's head from his body. And while slicing, he shouted that "Dekhotকৈ mumai dangor nohoy." মানে, um, my uncle is not bigger than my country. So that was the dedication that man had, and that incident had a very strong impact on the whole army, because that army believed that if we do not perform, this man is not going to leave us alive. And as a result of which, the walls were also built in time, and the enemy could not have could they tried many times. They tried 3 times, 4 times to enter Guwahati by doing various tricks and tactics, but they couldn't enter Guwahati. And Lachit wanted to. He also devised a plan where he wanted to utilize the weather of this area to defeat the enemy. For someone who comes from outside Assam, this is a very humid weather, and there are mosquitoes. It's all water, right? There are mosquitoes and all. So for someone who comes from outside, it will not be easy for him to survive here for long. So his army also started, losing their strength, dying because of the weather, the conditions, and then occasional floods also are there. So they couldn't survive the floods, because during floods their camps get excuse me, their camps are separated from each other. They don't get supplies. Their horses started dying. So all these incidents slowly led to the decline of the hold of the Mughals. The Mughals were, after Mir Jumla defeated the Ahom army and he went back. He died on the way, by the way. But
Oh,
Mir Jumla subjugated the Ahom kingdom, and he put a subedar here in Assam. The Subedar was the overall in charge of the whole Ahom kingdom during those days. But as I said, after rigorous training and all, they defeated the Subedar, and the Subedar was sent back to the Mughals. So when Aurangzeb came to know of that, he sent another commander to Assam. He was a Hindu commander named Ram Singh. So
Raja
Ram
Ram Singh.
Singh, yeah, Raja Ram Singh. Raja
Yeah.
Ram Singh led an army of around 50,000 men to defeat Lachit again. And as I said, he couldn't enter Guwahati through various tricks and ways to enter Guwahati. He tried many times, but he couldn't. As a result of which, he started negotiating with Lachit. But then negotiations also failed, and his army started slowly deteriorating. But there was, as I said, there are always treacherous people within the enemy. So there was another person who was more ambitious than Lachit, and who wanted to be the Borphukan.
Oh,
Okay, so what he did, he informed the king that the Lachit was deliberately, excuse me, deliberately delaying the whole war, and he was not attacking the Mughals. He was deliberately delaying the war. So king ordered that the Mughals should be attacked immediately. And when the king ordered, the king's order had to be followed. What Lachit did, he the the fellow who informed king about the whole thing, Lachit made him the commander um, of that army that was going for the battle with Mughals. Excuse me. The battle was called the Battle of Alaboy.
yeah.
The that was the
I think you
only.
have spoken for long. Maybe you would. Meanwhile, I would just
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
our
yeah.
listeners that our guest today has spoken for a lot of time, so he's having a sore throat. Meanwhile, I will just tell you that how significant that this whole event would be. Now, imagine that if your boss, that was Mr. Lachit Borphukan at that time, who would punish his own maternal uncle. He beheaded him when he didn't find that wall completed that day. I always imagine myself in those positions, that how would I feel when I would see that this is the result that is going to be there if I'm not thorough with my task.
Immediately.
And with events like these wars, these are wars of survival, these are wars of identity. And it's
Mhm.
just not of an individual or king. I think for that time it was for the whole home civilization as such. If they wouldn't have won that war, God knows what would have happened.
Yeah.
But they actually prevailed. So, and I wanted to listen to those words in Assamese, because I think when these words are spoken in the native language, they capture the emotions as such. If we speak about them in English or Hindi, they won't capture the
Mhm.
emotions behind the. So you were saying, sir, if you're okay right
Yeah, yeah.
now.
As I was saying, the Battle of Alaboy, it was a battle that was fought on the direction of the king, right?
Yeah.
And the Mughals were very, very strong in land rather than in the water. So, Alaboy, the place Alaboy, which I am talking about, is a huge stretch of land, an open land, where defeating the Mughals directly wouldn't be easy. But as the king has ordered, they had to attack the Mughals. So, what Lachit did, he made the person who informed the king as the commander of that army that was going to attack the Mughals. However, the Ahoms initially defeated the Mughals, the Mughal cavalry, and as you know, the by the sunset the war ends, right? So while after the war ended and the Ahom army was returning, what Ram Singh did, he sent a huge swarm of another cavalry with spears in their hand, and they attacked the Ahoms from behind, and they killed Ahom men indiscriminately. It was a black day during. It was a black day. Even it still is a black day for Assam, the Battle of Alaboy, because 10,000 men died during that war.
Yeah.
But that Lachit didn't lose hope with that war. But yes, mentally he was unstable, and that led him to, uh, and that made him sick. So when the final standoff was there, the standoff which we call as the Battle of Saraighat, during the final standoff, Lachit was very weak, and he was just monitoring the war from a um, fort, and he was monitoring the war. The Ahom boats were approaching the Mughal boats, but due to the loss of Alaboy, the Ahom soldiers thought that the general has not come for war. Probably he is thinking of abandoning the war, and that's why the Ahom started slowly abandoning the war ground. That panicked Lachit. What he could do, he had excruciating pain in his body, but somehow he had to fight. So he got up. He got up, took his hangdang. Hangdang is the sword which the Ahoms
Yeah.
take. He took his sword and he started climbing down the stairs. But Ahoms also believed in astrology, and they had astrologers in their army. So the astrologer said that this is not the right time. You cannot go out to fight the Ahoms, fight the
And I
Mughals.
think,
You'll be
and I
defeated.
think at that
But
very moment he even had an
Lachit
argument
was
with the
very
astrologer.
eager to fight. He said, "No, no, I'm going out." The astrologer,
Yeah.
yeah, the astrologer said that no, you cannot go out. Then Lachit said that, see, his name was Sorobor. See Sorobor.
Yeah.
I'll say it in Assamese if you don't mind. Said,
Yeah. Yeah. Please. Please. Please.
Rajai nekatile, moi agote katim. Means if your readings go wrong, king will not kill you, I'll kill you first. Okay. Then this astrologer was so confident in his readings, he said, Katiba. That means kill me. Okay.
Oh.
So yeah, he was so confident in his readings. And after some time he said, okay, this is the right time now to go out and fight. This is the time when Ramchandra, Raja Ramchandra killed Ravana. So, so the Lachit went out, he went to his boat, and he started attacking the Mughals head on. When the general came for the war, others also came. All his lower commanders, his army, they also started coming for the war, and the Mughals were vehemently attacked. And the only thing that is different from a land war and a water war is that during a land war, your ammunitions are the amount of ammunition you have in your camp, the amount of ammunition you can use in your battle. But in land water battles, or the battles in rivers and seas, the amount of ammunition is there in your boat or the ship is the amount of ammunition you have. When that is exhausted, your whole war is ended. It doesn't matter how much ammunition you have in your coffers. So both the ammunitions were diminishing, the ammunition from the Mughal people as well as the Ahoms. So what Lachit did, he devised a plan. He lined all the Ahom boats in one line and made an improvised bridge on the Brahmaputra river, so that all the ammunitions and all the supplies could come through that bridge to all the boats. But Mughal didn't have such a plan. So ultimately, the Mughals were defeated and they were sent away. That was the Battle of Saraighat, because that place, even today, is known as Saraighat.
I am not overstating it when I say that when I was reading about this whole stuff and researching further, it really gave me goosebumps because I cannot even imagine the kind of happiness, the exhilaration that they would have felt when they would have won
Yes,
that war. It was
yes,
a David versus Goliath battle. It would have been a very difficult battle because for the basic fact that Mughals were definitely greater in numbers as compared to the Ahoms. That's a given. They
Mhm.
had a very huge army. So
Yeah.
what I mean, this battle is really of huge significance, because even the Mughals understood the significance, the strategic significance of Assam, of the location
Yes.
at that time. It was
Mhm.
really, it was and is still, and I think it will always be a very prominent gateway towards the east. And whatever we speak of this battle and of
Mhm.
Lachit Borphukan, it cannot do justice to it. So I will proceed to my last question, sir.
Mhm. Mhm.
Before we and I would really urge my listeners to definitely read his book and to get to know about this prestigious kingdom and Lachit Borphukan as such, because this is a part of our history that I really feel that we all should know.
Yeah.
It's very profound and very inspiring as such. It
Because
really inspires you.
this is the part of India which has never been subjugated by an outsider. It was only during the British time that the British came and ruled this part. Before that, always an insider was ruling this part.
And this is something that I came to know today, and this also brings me to my next question, maybe to one of my podcasts, that how did the British, who sailed in few ships, they managed to conquer this great country of ours with such great military might, everything. I mean, that is a case study in itself. But
Yeah.
anyway, sir, how does this Ahom Kingdom and Lachit Borphukan does it, how much does it currently impacts the generational of Assam? How do the people over there see him or the kingdom, and how do the youth see the great Lachit Borphukan?
Hmm. Well, Lachit Borphukan is an icon today in Assam. When we have to show daring to people, Assamese people, they say Murgat Lassitor Tejase. That means I have Lachit's blood running in my veins. So that is the significance. It sums up in one line. Everybody wants to be Lachit in this place. They want to have his kind of determination. They want to have his kind of bravery, his dedication towards the country, towards his king. So he was a perfect gentleman, so to say. And everyone admires him here. And the Ahom kingdom has a significant role to play in the whole of this place. As you said before, most of the surnames are from that era of Assamese people today: Borua,
Yeah,
Hajorika, Fukon, Rajkua, Gohai, so
yeah,
to say.
yeah,
Secondly, the legacy the
yeah.
kings
In
have
fact,
left, the legacy, the monuments, the I'd say excavations, they are still a very significant part of the Ahom geography. For example, the Joy Hagor, the huge, I'd say, water tank excavated by the Ahoms, it serves the people of Sipsagar still as drinking water. There's a, mm, I'd say, excavation called Digholi Pukri in Guwahati. It serves as a tourist place for people. So the significance is still there. And recently, if you, the last year, it was 400 years of Lachit Borphukan's birth here.
yeah.
So the government of Assam celebrated it in a huge way. They produced a documentary on him, and um, they um, took out a book, a coffee table book on him. I was part of both these things.
I
Featured in
saw
the
the
document.
documentary. Yeah,
Okay,
I saw that one.
so
You're looking
mm,
very good on that documentary.
thank you, thank you. So, and then this whole 3 day program was organized in Vigyan Bhavan in Delhi, where there were various seminars, there were discussions, and Amit Shah ji came, our Prime Minister, Honorable Narendra Modi ji came, Honorable Prime Minister, and it was a huge successful event. So that event led to the people of mainstream India also to know about Lachit. So today, people are taking interest in Lachit and the Kingdom. So I really thank the government of Assam for taking such a step and bringing Lachit to the mainstream India. As you said at the starting of the podcast, you didn't know about the gold medal that is being given in the Defense Academy, that's named after Lachit. And now the government is taking another step. They're building a statue, a huge statue, similar to the lines of the statue of Vallabhbhai Patel. So things are looking good, and people are still assimilated with the cultures of the Ahom as well as the cultures that later came in. So the significance is still there of the Ahom.
Yeah, the way now, as you have described, especially speaking in Assamese, like when people say that I have blood of Lassit in me,
Mm.
that says a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to judge how impactful a certain thing is, I don't look into books. I look into the common parlance. I look into people. How do they identify with that
Mhm.
particular thing, that particular person? And if that is the saying, then I think we cannot say anything else. And
Yeah.
with that, after apologizing for my poor pronunciation in Assamese, and I would like to thank sir for coming on this podcast and telling us so many wonderful things about, Lachit Borphukan, about Assamese history, about Ahoms as such. It has been a pleasure, sir, talking to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me as well, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the Ahom Kingdom, the Assamese people, and especially Lachit Borphukan. Thank you. It was a wonderful experience to be here. Thank you for inviting me once again.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.